just to keep things easy. All right, so once we've added the bot, you'll see it shows up, and go ahead and click it. Now, we can cover this through this single interface, which has all of the settings that we normally would set, but for this session, I'm going to teach it using the full screen mode. So let's go ahead and enable that. So down here on the bottom of the screen, you'll see full screen. Let's go ahead and click that. And then we'll be taken to this screen. So let's give it a bit. Let's let our market data load, and here it is. And you can actually see the three indicators we were discussing. So let's go ahead and go through the general settings. So if we click here, general settings, you can see we have our usual, the bot name, which account we're going to use. In this case, we're using our simulated Binance account. The market, 88 BTC, and then what coin position we're in. This is your bought or sold position. What do you currently have? If you currently have ADA that you want to start with, you leave it in ADA, or you switch it to BTC. I'm going to switch it to BTC. And then how much ADA do we want to trade? Just for the sake of running a back test, let's just do 1,000. Our fee amount, so depending on which exchange you're trading on, you'll need to enter your fee manually. For Binance, it should be, if they haven't changed it, 0.1 or 0.005 for your fee. So we'll just leave it 0.1 for now. Let's assume a high fee. Now let's go to safeties and indicators. And this is that same information you saw previously, just, more condensed with everything we can see here. So the first thing I want to do is, rather than jump into the settings, let me explain a little bit about how Mad Hatter is supposed to operate. Basically, the Mad Hatter uses the Bollinger Band has a primary indicator, and the RSI and MACD has secondary indicators. And I can show you how to make its knowledge, or the way it makes decisions, change. So we'll go to that. But the first thing we got to look at is the Bollinger Band. The Bollinger Band generally is set to pre-fire. So if you look right here, generally when you're using Bollinger Band on bots, it fires at the bottom crossing right here. So the moment a candle either closes or touches the bottom Bollinger Band, that's generally where a Bollinger Band indicator will issue a buy or a sell. Mad Hatter's Bollinger Band will actually trigger preemptively, so before it touches the bottom, and we just do that by doing some math on the indicator to try to assume or predict when we're going to touch the bottom indicator. So instead of touching right here where you can see my crosshair, we'd probably fire a signal here. And I know what you're saying, well, there's no signal there. Well, yes, because we still take into account RSI and MACD. So that's how the Bollinger Band works. And RSI and MACD is exactly the same. RSI preemptively fires on the bottom. So before the touch of our buy, it'll try to preemptively fire there. And MACD actually does it on convergence. So we don't fire on a MACD cross, we fire on a convergence, which would be like right here, if you can see this bit of data. So now that we've gotten a base of how the Mad Hatter works, or should be working, on the back end, let's talk about how to configure it. Now, on initial release, Mad Hatter was designed only to work on a 5-minute market. What we ended up doing was expanding this for individuals. So now you can pick any time frame to use the Mad Hatter strategy. We didn't want to release it for multiple time frames, but we did a lot of back testing, and there is cases where a longer time frame does benefit from this kind of smart scalping strategy. The first option, or the next option after interval, is indicator signal consensus. So this is where Mad Hatter kind of gets its name. It's not always the case where all three indicators will do well enough to trigger the correct buy or sell. And there's certain coin pairs that benefit from, maybe RSI and Bollinger Band trigger now, but then RSI and MACD trigger the correct sell. So what we can do is we can enable this indicator signal consensus, and what this says is that if any of these three indicators agree, or if two of them agree, we'll accept the signal. So for example, if Bollinger Band and RSI agree on a sell here, we will go ahead and issue the sell, which we exactly see here, because MACD, so it would issue a sell. The next thing is, let's say for the next signal, the RSI and MACD agree. In that case, they'll issue a buy or a sell, and Bollinger Band will be ignored. So that's an interesting feature for you to explore later on. Now we have this include current candle option. The include current candle option is for instances where you have these gigantic kind of wicks. Basically what it says is, do we want to include the current forming candle in our time frame in our decision making? So if for whatever reason you want to do that, you can enable it there. Now let's talk about some built-in safeties. So alongside these indicators, Mad Hatter has a little bit more in the background. Now, for those who are familiar with our trade bots and the percentage change insurance or safety, you'll be familiar with this option: minimum price change to buy, minimum price change to sell. This means that the price needs to move, at least in the way it's set now, 0.1% up or 0.1% down to trigger a buy or sell, respectively. The next thing we have is a stop loss percentage for your buy. So the way this will work is, if you buy now and the price drops, let's put 2%, then the bot will sell its position. Now keep in mind, with using stop losses in Haas Online, with Mad Hatter, there isn't a wait for next order. So if you're a trade bots, you're familiar with that insurance. So what will happen is if we trigger a stop loss and we get another buy signal, we're immediately going to buy in. So that's something to keep in mind when you're using this. So we introduce also the disable after stop loss. So there's cases where Mad Hatter moves out of position. Depending on how you set it up, highly depends on if you want Mad Hatter to continue trading. So if you want it to stop the moment it gets stopped out, so let's say you have a very tight Mad Hatter configuration on an uptrend and you want to stop it if it gets stopped out, then you can use the disable after stop loss. So let's keep going. Now hopefully there's going to be a bit of indicator understanding. Unlike most of our custom bots, which is really just put your own parameters in and kind of move forward, Mad Hatter highly depends on your understanding of these three specific indicators. So for example, you can fully customize the Bollinger Band settings, the length, the deviation up, deviation down, its moving average type, and its additional deviation on top of that. So what does that look like? Well, deviation, or the length, is obviously just how many candles to use before we start drawing the next segment. So if we look at this, the lower I make it, kind of the sharper our upper and bottom Bollinger Bands become. See how this works? And remember, we're using these to define our buy and sell signals. And then of course our deviation length. So if we change this, you can start seeing how the Bollinger Band's affected. So let's set this back to default real quick. And then our moving average is obviously what the middle moving average is. And all of these settings come into play when you're trying to develop a Mad Hatter setup for a specific coin. And I'm going to repeat that. Most of the time, Mad Hatters need to be configured for specific market conditions. Now, there are cases where a kind of a base configuration can move around different coins, but to truly get the most return, you are going to have to spend some time and modify the Bollinger Band, RSI, and MACD. So let's go ahead and keep going. So we could play with Bollinger Bands all day long. So let's go to the next one. Require FCC. What that means is require full candle close. That means that this wouldn't trigger a signal. We would need a full candle under the Bollinger Band or in our area, in the way the Mad Hatter Bollinger Band figures out its buy and sell, the preemptive full candle close. So basically, ignore wicks. We need a full candle to be there. The next one's reset middle. So what that generally states is, if we have sell signals up here and we come back down and we touch the middle, the B band will now close its sell signal. So it means we reset the sell signal, we reset middle, we no longer send any more signals until we generate it up or down again. And then allow mid sells sounds exactly like it says, allow selling in the middle of the Bollinger Band. So next, let's move on to RSI. Now nothing really changes to RSI. You have your links and then your buy and sell levels. And if you're not familiar with what your buy and sell levels look like, RSI, like we explained earlier, will trigger when it gets close to the buy or close to the sell. And basically what you want to do is you want to try to get this line inside your RSI line. So for example, let's try to modify the length. See if we can get it a little more jagged for us to put this buy signal in. And this is by no means any sort of settings. I'm just trying to show you what this might look like. So right now I'm creating a really bad Mad Hatter bot for this tutorial. And then we need to bring this down since the red is our sell level. And we just need to get as many of these in there as possible. Now you might not want to do that. You might want to only have it on the spikes. But there you go. We have this kind of really rough RSI, but you can see where we'd probably generate a buy signal here, a sell signal here. And finally, MACD. MACD is, like I said, it's on convergence. So you're looking for areas that look like this, or right here, before the two lines